Is the COVID-19 vaccine technically a bioweapon, like the typical bioweapons that we might go to war over, toppling Saddam Hussein because of biological weapons, weapons of mass destruction? Well, that's exactly what our next guest alleges, and he's not alone in this. He's fighting to make his case in Florida right now against Governor Ron DeSantis, arguing that the state should stop facilitating mRNA COVID-19 vaccines and injections to the people, the citizens of Florida, and any related products around the COVID-19 vaccine. So joining me now is Dr. Joseph Sansone. He's a Florida psychotherapist, licensed mental health counselor, hypnotherapist. He's also been litigating this case pro se while publishing updates on his Substack. And he joins us now. Doctor, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So this is fascinating to me. On first glance, I would think, oh, well, Governor DeSantis would be all over this, pulling this off the shelf, really trying to protect the people of Florida. But that doesn't seem to be the case at all. How did you decide? Why did you decide to fight this? Why did you decide to take this on largely by yourself?
Well, it started in May of 2021, actually, and I worked about 18 months to get my first ban to jab resolution passed down in the county, my county Republican Party here in Florida. And that declared the mRNA injections and COVID injections to be biological and technological weapons of mass destruction, called on the governor and attorney general to act. I got that passed in like 10 counties in Florida, county Republican parties across the country, and eventually I got it passed in Idaho and Republican Party of Arizona as well. But what happened was here in Florida, from the state party, they were kind of blocking it, not allowing it to come up for vote. So what happened was, I mean, I had an influence because I think it did kind of prompt the Surgeon General of the state of Florida to call for a halt to the injections when he did in early 2024. And for people who don't know, the Florida Department of Health has said that these mRNA injections are unsafe for humans and a potential threat to the human genome. So what happened is in early 2024, I filed what was called a writ of mandamus, and that was to try to force the governor and the attorney general to stop the shots, basically, because they're violating Florida statute 790.166. I reached out to Karen Kingston. She gave me a whole bunch of her research that I used in that. So it was really good, the science and everything. But the court found it was an improper use of a writ of mandamus. You can only use a writ of mandamus for a ministerial duty, like say the governor's got to appoint somebody in 60 days, that kind of thing. I mean, I found case law saying if there's an abuse of discretionary duty, you can do it, but the court didn't want any part about that. I lost my appeal, so I filed this second case on December 1st of 2024. And this case is a complaint seeking an injunction and declaratory injunctive relief and declaratory judgments. What I'm arguing in my case is that on April 1st of 2023, while I was in the middle of doing all those ban and jab resolutions, I had congestive heart failure, unexpectedly, without any prior heart problem, had congestive heart failure, went into the hospital, and on April 10th, I go into the hospital on April 1st, all of a sudden congestive heart, April Fool's Day, right? So on April 10th, I had triple bypass heart surgery. Now, while I was in the hospital, I was doing two things. I was getting unvaccinated blood in case I needed it. Fortunately, I didn't. And I also got Dr. Francis Boyle, who, for people who don't know, was the law professor that lobbied for and drafted the Biological Weapons and Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989 to endorse my ban and jab resolution while I was in the hospital, because I didn't want anybody to know I was in the hospital. I didn't want to lose steam. So he was an advisor at National Arm, where I sit on the board. So he'd sit in our meetings every couple of weeks. So that was then. And so what I'm arguing is that my congestive heart failure and triple bypass heart surgery are the result of involuntary environmental exposure through shedding of the technology in these injections. And I use that phrase, involuntary environmental exposure, because I want people to think like asbestos and things like that. We get injunctive relief when there is a dangerous threat like that. And so I filed my case on this. Now, my case was an 80-page complaint. I filed along with about, I think it was 50 or 64 pages of affidavits, 9 affidavits up front, and then I got 2 more recently. But one of them was from Dr. Francis Boyle, the law professor who wrote the bioweapons law. I want people to understand something. Dr. Boyle's affidavit was not just an expert legal opinion. It is legislative intent. He lobbied for, drafted, and wrote the U.S. domestic implementation legislation for the Biological Weapons Convention. So that's a
Wow.
really powerful. Now, my case has been prejudiced, Clayton, because unfortunately, Dr. Boyle died about 2 months after I filed this case on, in December 2024, and about 3 weeks after I had arranged for him to testify in the Netherlands case. So that hurts my case tremendously because he was my lead witness, although I have plenty of great witnesses. And I just want people to understand, I'm not just, and I know your audience, your regular viewers are probably aware of this issue, but for people that aren't, so the World Council for Health here in Florida, they endorsed my bill and they declared the mRNA injections and products to be biological and technological weapons of mass destruction too. And also in September of this past year, 2025, a paper came out called COVID-19 Harms and Damages, a non-exhaustive conclusion. That paper clearly states, now it has 11 prominent co-authors, Dr. Vila, Dr. Zivzic, Dr. McCullough, a bunch of other people. And I don't mean to leave anybody out on that, but that paper, Dr. Mavrakakis, that paper was very important because it clearly states that both the quote unquote virus and the vaccine violated the Biological Weapons Convention. So this is getting out. That was a peer-reviewed journal article saying that. So anyway,
Can I ask you, in the hospital,
yes,
when you're in the
sure.
hospital with the heart issue, and you're claiming environmental damages as a result of this mRNA bioweapon, how were you given some vaccinated blood or infected? I'm just curious how.
No. What I was doing when I was in the hospital is and it's not easy to do because of logistics. You think someone would just be able to go to the hospital and give you blood. No, they got to go to the centers in the county and then the blood gets processed. And so I actually got people that I knew were unvaccinated, like to come and donate blood. And I didn't need any, fortunately, but that's how I got unvaccinated blood because I knew then the blood was contaminated. In fact, I was supposed to have my surgery on like the Friday. I think it was like the 7th or something like that. And they had 2 units, and I knew I had 6 units, and I'm like, no. We're pushing this to Monday because I am not getting any vaccinated blood. And so I actually pushed my surgery back. That's how crazy I am because it's like emergency surgery. But no, I fortunately did not need blood.
Did you know that most methylene blue being sold online is the same grade used in fish tanks? Watch out for low-quality bottles that are untested for heavy metals and they're made overseas. Well, you can trust the wellness company's Recharge, which is a doctor-formulated supplement that combines powdered methylene blue with NAD+ and PQQ. Now, this methylene blue is USP grade, ensuring top-tier purity for maximum safety and effectiveness. This is not some sketchy stuff that you're going to find on Amazon. Recharge is formulated with research-backed ingredients to optimize brain function and cellular repair while supporting clean, lasting energy. So tap into cognitive and metabolic support that helps you stay energized, focused, and resilient all day long. Choose a trusted formula made for you, not for fish tanks. You can feel the difference with enhanced mental clarity, sustained energy, sharper focus, and protection against cognitive decline. And no, it won't turn your tongue blue. So head over to twc.health/redacted and use the code redacted to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/redacted. Use the code redacted to get 10% off. You're making the case, though, that you had environmental mRNA damage. Like, how did you get this damage? If it wasn't from vaccinated blood, you went in.
I mean, and I filed these as supplements in my case. Well, first of all, my affidavits, like Dr. Mahalchi has talks about the shedding a lot, and some of the other ones I do. But in fact, even the Pfizer documents do. But there are studies out there. There was one study out of Israel that showed the transmission of the mRNA even to unvaccinated women. And so you don't have to get it through blood or anything. Speaking to medical doctors, sex is one way. Intimacy is one way you're going to get transmitted whatever's in these shots. But it doesn't have to be. In my case, I'm in a small private practice office, and I'm dealing with people like a few days after they got the shot or a week after I got shot. And it's like being around somebody. Some people are more sensitive to this too, but it's like being around someone who has the flu.
Right.
Like, you can feel the sickness. And so it's
Right,
like
because we're
that.
seeing this. We're seeing this showing up in. People didn't get the shot, but we're seeing the mRNA, the shedding. We're seeing it in their bodies, even though they didn't themselves get the shot, just from environmental, just being around other individuals. Yes, through intimacy, but not even. We're seeing people who haven't even had intimacy, and they're getting it just from exposure to other people.
And so what happened is my case I'm going to abbreviate this a little bit. I don't want to go into weeds on you, but my case got dismissed like 9 days later in December of 2024. Like I did my motion for rehearing. The judge kind of threatened me with sanctions if I continue to file frivolous cases and said she wasn't going to entertain any further motions. She did not dismiss my case with prejudice, which means you can't amend, but basically she was unofficially doing it. So I appealed the case. I had like 8 different issues. Long story short there, and I put a lot of supplements to authorities into the record, including like Dr. Latipo's speaking in his official capacity, saying that mRNA is a poison. Excuse me, sorry, that's actually the congestive heart failure. But and so I put a lot of stuff in the record there. So I actually won my first appeal. But the court, what they did is they dismissed my case and said it was, instead of reversing and remanding, because they couldn't do it because the judge did not dismiss with prejudice, they dismissed my case and said it was still active in the lower court, despite the order saying you couldn't file any further motions. And so that was actually a big win. So then I did a bunch of motions trying to get this. This is on November 12th of this past year, 2025, where I won. And so here I'm back in December 1st again. I filed my amended complaint. And what I did is I'm still saying it's a biological and technological weapons of mass destruction, but I dropped the weapons of mass destruction statute because there's no civil cause of action in there. And what I did instead is I'm using Florida's Health Freedom Act. It's like 381 point something or other, as well as our Civil Rights Act. And then I'm also using the constitutional provisions in there. And what I'm saying is that because of the involuntary environmental exposure, the mRNA injections and products are violating our Health Freedom Act. And so this really is a novel issue of first impression that the court needs to hear. And I'm arguing that because we passed this law that prohibits Forster Court's EUA products, face masks, injections, and so on, the mRNA injections. And so I'm saying because there's no way to possibly avoid exposure, this is actually violating our health freedom law. Now, whether I can prove that my injury is from the shedding or not is difficult because I don't think we have the technology to do that, like with tests here. But there's plenty of evidence to show that the involuntary environmental exposure through shedding is real. We've got like I said, the study showing the unvaccinated women having the mRNA in them. There's other studies with women with menstrual cycles, being in close proximity to someone got the shot, that it interferes with the menstrual cycle and so on. And I also have affidavits from experts, talking about the shedding. And so I'm arguing that, like from the Civil Rights Act point of view, I'm arguing that I need a right to public accommodation here. And by the way, I want to say one thing. Anybody, if you get the shot, I am no way attacking you. Because if you look at that study, COVID-19 harms and damages, a non-exhaustive conclusion, they talk a little bit about Dr. Vila's preliminary research there. And she's basically saying that 55% of the people who got the shots have AIDS and like 75% have some damage to the immune system. That's even if they're asymptomatic, like in other words, it's showing up in their blood tests. So if people continue to get these shots and the boosters and so on, even if it's a small amount, if they're shedding on you and you got if I got the shot and I have a damaged immune system, just like I have a damaged heart or anything, if you have pre-existing conditions, it's an enhanced threat to you. And that's why, and the absurdity, I want you to think about this, Clayton. Automobiles with defective like airbags get taken off the market like right away.
Right.
We've got a product that has clearly been shown to, there's studies out there showing it reduces lifespan, showing increased infant mortality, reduced sterility, and shortened lifespans, and cancers, heart attacks, autoimmune diseases, neurological problems, the full spectrum of disorders. And so why am I doing this? I'm doing this because the reality is most people we know will have a shortened lifespan because of these injections.
Right.
because either directly or indirectly, because you don't have to be a medical doctor or rocket scientist to figure this out. If you're giving people a bunch of chronic illnesses and diseases, they're not going to live as long.
Yeah.
And so, in my case,
what do you think is the single? I was going to ask you, what do you think is the single strongest legal argument that you believe is in your that the court cannot ignore? Like, what do you think is the strongest legal argument that you have that the court can't ignore?
Well, understand, and I know you understand this, but maybe people watching, you know, an appeal is dealing mostly with the procedural issues.
Right. Hey, it's been tossed out. I want to.
I weave in the merits of the case under the novel issue of first impression, and I keep weaving in the merits of the case, and I'm arguing that's why we need evidentiary development. But most of my I had 7 arguments, but one of them was preemptive, so really I had like 6 procedural arguments. But I have an absolute right to amend. Like it's in our codes, it's in our rules and everything here, and there's recent case law as well. Like, so in order to because my case was dismissed sua sponte twice now by the same judge. Like the other side, the defendants, the governor and attorney general, have not did a motion to dismiss or anything like that. There's been no adversarial testing here, and so these are procedural issues. My case is really strong. If you read the answer brief from the governor and attorney general through their attorney, it was not good. I'll tell you why. So I have 6 errors that I'm saying from the court. They only addressed one of them. Like if you're writing, so in the appellate court, I do my appellate brief, then the appellees, the defendants, they do their answer brief, which they did. Now the court gave them an additional 60 days. I wrote my brief in 10 days. Like literally.
What did Governor DeSantis say in response? Through his lawyers? What did he say as a defense?
Their defense was really bad. They only addressed one of the issues, and they didn't do a good job out of it. One of the cases they used actually helped my argument. But what they did is they attacked my initial complaint. They used a straw man argument. They attacked my initial complaint, saying that there's no civil cause of action under the weapons of mass destruction law and so on. I had previously argued that should be looked at like a public health law, and that the court could create one. But I dropped those statutes. I clearly say that in my amended complaint, and so they did not address the health freedom law that I'm using. They did not address the Civil Rights Act, and none of the constitutional provisions that I'm using. So it was they kept it narrow on the procedural issues because they did not want to address the merits of the case because they're going to lose. And if they address the merits of the case, that admits that there's a dispute here. But
let me come back to my question, and because I kind of took you off course by talking about the defense there. But what do you think sits at the top? Like if you're in an elevator and you've got to explain this in 30 seconds to somebody, what do you think is your top legal argument in this that they can't?
Why it's a weapon? You mean?
Yeah.
Well, one, if you use Dr. Boyle's argument, which is basically that the COVID was developed through illegal gain of function research because there's a moratorium at a time. So it wasn't for peaceful purposes. It was designed to strengthen the quote unquote virus or whatever it is. I think it's biosynthetic. But so that shows the simplicity of that argument is the derivatives of that, the spike protein and so on, are in the injections.
Right.
That shows specific intent.
Right.
So you have an illegal gain of function product, the quote unquote virus, then the derivatives of that are in the injections. That shows specific intent. Now, he also talks about the dual use technology, like with the lipid nanoparticles developed out of DARPA, as well showing specific intent. He supported the knowingness argument because I rely on that heavily in my brief. The knowingness argument's like a step below specific intent, like a knowingness. So you knew the shots were harming people. You knew they're, and so on, yet you continue to lie and say they were safe and effective. So that meets the knowingness standard of criminal intent. And then also he talked about malice aforethought as well in his book. And what that is that goes like British common law. And so that's like a total reckless disregard for human life. And on that alone, he argued that you could charge like Fauci, Bourla, and these people with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. And of course, there's informed consent. There's absolutely zero informed consent. Every state and country has informed consent laws. You can't have informed consent for a bioweapon. That's like saying you have informed consent to be raped.
Right. So the defense on this, you're specifically going after DeSantis.
Yeah.
And because of the immunity clauses for the pharmaceutical companies, is that why, like, are there other defendants on here that you're going up against, or do you know that, hey, we can't go after Pfizer, we can't go after Moderna?
I don't agree that you can't go after them. I sidestepped the PrEP Act because I'm not going after them. I'm not suing for money. I'm just trying to get an injunction to stop the governor and attorney general from continuing to facilitate these weapons of mass destruction that are targeting Floridians. But James Roguski wrote a couple articles like a year ago, like really highlighting why the PrEP Act is unconstitutional. I think that if you're going to go after them, in your brief, you argue why it's unconstitutional.
Right.
Make the court decide it. Because I can tell you right off the top, there's no judicial review. I mean, Marbury versus Madison, 1803, you're supposed to have judicial review. You don't have a right to trial by like a jury of your peers. There's a lot of reasons why the PrEP Act is unconstitutional. And my argument is I think the problem we're having right now is really partly of learned helplessness. I don't know why there's not 100 cases like mine in every state. I really don't understand that. Come from different legal angles.
No, and frankly, I would love that. I mean, this is how we get discovery. We actually can track where the intent back to whether it's at Fort Detrick, where this all came from, and that's where we actually get to learn the origins of this. I wish there were more.
You get to that discovery.
Yeah, they never let because they want to block it. And I think you're right on the PrEP Act. We've had constitutional experts on the show saying, hey, we've got to have cases that can actually bring this before the Supreme Court in order to have this thing overturned. Right. Of course, we also know that Bobby Kennedy could, with a few sentences, he could overturn the PrEP Act.
Look, President Trump, with a snap of his fingers, could stop this. RFK Jr., along with the FDA commissioner, could each stop this.
Right.
Right on their own. Now, look, okay, maybe RFK Jr. will get fired afterward, but let me see, save millions of lives or get fired. I mean, do it. Any governor can do it. Any governor and state attorney general can do it. Every state has their weapons of mass destruction and bioweapons laws. And so in Florida, like back in 1997, Florida was, I think, the first state to pull fen-phen off the market. And that led to a national recall. And so there's other examples too. States routinely pull federal medical products off the market when they're harming people.
Right. What evidence do you believe most clearly supports your claim that these things should not remain on the market?
Well, I mean, I have like scores of studies in my complaint and all the supplements I put in there. One, there's a negative effectiveness. You're more likely to get sick if you got the shot with COVID. Two, it creates a host of diseases and disabilities from cancer, heart disease, neurological problems, The autoimmune problem is a real ticking time bomb because you're asymptomatic. You got, 10 years from now, that could show up as cancer or something else. Cancer, of course, is a problem. So you got all these disorders, you're shortening lifespans, and you're reducing birth rates and increasing infant mortality. If that's not enough to take it off the market, what would do it? And here's the thing, people need to enter the arena. Your friends and family members have been violated. You may have been violated. Why are you sitting on the sidelines right now? There's no excuse for that. Okay, so early on you asked me why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for the same reason. One, I don't want to be targeted anymore, but two, the same reason you want to sit there and watch somebody beat a kitten.
Right.
What's going on right now is evil. And Operation Warp Speed was treason, an act of war against the American people and the world at large. It involved an international criminal conspiracy, this international crime syndicate, because you had every country in the world and every state following the same unscientific protocols. And I want people to think about this. You get 10 or 12 of your friends together at a dinner party, similar political, cultural backgrounds. You're going to start bickering about the nuances of any issues you guys are discussing. How did they get the whole world to go along with this? The same humiliation tactics, the following the lines on the floor, the face diapers and all that. This is sadistic and evil, what they've done here. And I do believe it is a part of a larger depopulation and transhumanist agenda. Look, there's 101 ways to argue that this is a weapon. In my briefs, I'm trying to keep it simple because once we get into the discovery, we can bring a lot more data in there. So I don't go that much into the DARPA. Now, some of my affidavits do. But go ahead, you're going to ask a question?
Well, I'm thinking about a lot. I mean, what's been the hardest part for you taking on the governor pro se, you know, without having institutional backing, having some large law firm that's representing you and dealing with this. You're really doing this on your own.
Correct. It takes a lot of time. The time factor is a big part of it. There's a little bit of you could argue there's an institutional bias against pro se litigants, but I think I'm beating that. My appeal is strong. Like I can't say what the court's going to do, but you know, I could always get shafted, but my appeal is stronger this time than last time.
Has there been no big law firm that wants to say, hey, Joe, you know, we want to do this pro bono. We want to take this on and work with you?
The problem there, Clayton, is I'm not suing for money. Most of the big law firms force to coerce their employees to get the shots, even here in Florida.
Oh, there you go.
I know because I was given information to people that were given information to people that were like interns and stuff like that. So they didn't like against some of these big name companies. So it's like that's part of it. The other thing is attorneys are afraid at the bar. I'm not afraid of anybody. I can't be intimidated. You're not going to threaten me. That's just not going to work. If I hire an attorney, one, they're going to be afraid of the judges in the bar. Two, they could be threatened or intimidated or something like that. And so I just don't see the point. I'm not telling you not to get an attorney if you can get one to take a case for you. There's some attorneys out there fighting it. But look how few people are willing to say this is a weapon when it's obviously a weapon.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And if you want to go into the whole depopulation piece of that, that's another part of the story, which I know that gets, you know, certainly banned on different platforms. You can't talk about that. So yeah, there's a lot of fear. There's absolutely a lot of fear. And if money is not involved, you're simply asking them you're not asking for damages, right? You're asking them to take this off the shelves. Stop in the state of Florida.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get an injunction. So the appellees, the governor, attorney generals have no interest in doing a consent agreement. They're not interested in that. And I think this is important because, you know, this is somebody who's trying to set up the run for president. We can't have another fraud in the White House. Right. Okay. This is somebody who's pretending you're getting headlines saying you're doing this, but even though the Surgeon General of the state of Florida in his official capacity said that mRNA is poison, which is literally in our weapons of mass destruction law, the governor won't take these off the market.
Do you think he's being paid off? Do you think why do you think DeSantis won't take these off the market?
Cowards, corrupt, or out of touch. It's always one of the three. I mean, because here's the question. Why have all 50 governors not taken it off the market? Right. Why have all 50 attorney generals not indicted anybody yet? And, you know, even county, the myth of the county sheriff. Why hasn't a county constitutional sheriff, myth of the constitutional, why haven't they gotten together with a county, like someplace like Texas, with a county prosecutor? Why haven't they indicted anybody? One indictment is, Dr. Boyle argued that one indictment and this whole house of cards will fall down. It'll break it open. And so that's what I've been working toward the whole time, is to try to get a jurisdiction somewhere to recognize these are weapons and take them off the market.
Who would you indict, though? Let's just say the state of, I live in Colorado, like state of Colorado. Who would you indict? If the PrEP Act protects Moderna and Pfizer, who would you indict? Could you indict the governor?
No. The PrEP Act, and I think you can challenge it in the court, like I said, for a civil case, that just protects them from civil liability. I mean, I guess you could argue it's protect. I would argue, though, that if you read it, I don't know that it would protect them from the use of a bioweapon, because I would say that then that's the law itself would be unconstitutional, and it's like a real estate contract that has illegal provisions in it, the whole thing. So if you have, I would think you could go after them if you're going to make the argument that these are weapons. If you're a prosecutor.
That's a great point. Before I let you go, I want to talk about the Netherlands case. So we had Sasha Latapova on the show a few weeks ago to talk about the Netherlands case. And in the country of the Netherlands, you're allowed to bring like singular litigation against individuals like Bill Gates and Albert Bourla of Pfizer. And they have to show up in court. So you are also a witness in that Netherlands case. So I want to further that story a little bit here. Okay. How are you a witness in the Netherlands case against Bourla and Bill Gates?
Yeah, they reached out to me in 2024, when I started filing my cases here. And I arranged for Dr. Boyle to testify there. My testimony is supposed to be, and we've given them written statements. My testimony is largely about what Dr. Boyle's legal view was. because you can do that there. You can actually do hearsay. And so, and I also like gave an affidavit verifying the affidavit that he gave me in my case. Oh, excuse me, sorry. So that's what my testimony will be about. Now, on April 9th, the appellate court there, they ruled against allowing the witnesses to testify. But
So
that doesn't.
Bourla and
so
Bill
I-
Gates, yeah.
no, but I want people to understand the appeal over there was like their version of an interlocutory appeal. They were just appealing, allowing us to testify in person. We've given our written statements. The hearing at the trial court there in Leeuwarden is on October 22nd. This case is moving forward.
Great.
It's just we're not going to be able to to give our testimony and get cross-examined, that kind of thing, as it stands right now. And so that was a little bit.
Well, that's very promising. I mean, this is one case, this is one country. This is very promising to have this type of litigation brought against Pfizer and Bill Gates specifically for their role in all of this. And again, I've said, and Sasha, I think, made the point that you need these cases where we're going to go through discovery. We're going to start to see the voluminous documents that show intent, show a cover up. And that's how you get these things through these cases.
And you need more cases. You need more cases. There need to be more cases popping up in Europe. There need to be more cases here in the U.S. And I can tell you, Attorney Peter Stassen, he hit them as hard as I would hit them. Like, we were in a courtroom, we were listening like through the translator and everything. You know, he went after them for the bioweapon and everything. But I mean, he even brought up Bill Gates being in the Epstein files and all that.
Wow.
So he really went. Which, by the way, I filed that stuff in my case to supplemental authorities here at the appellate court. I filed a few Epstein filings, one about Bill Gates with the planning of it, one with another filing I filed with Epstein talking about meeting with the DARPA lady and stuff like that. And again, I did that I do it under the argument that this is why we need evidentiary development. This is, and so that's how because I can't really argue the merits at the appellate court, but I'm arguing this is why we need evidentiary development. And so I've hit them with a lot in there, Clayton. It's just, I think their answer brief was not good because they don't really have a legal argument because and I also, one thing I want to add too is, and they also didn't even contest the fact that I'm asking for the court to reassign this to another judge. The judge in this case, Judge Dempsey, she actually ruled on a prior case with a whistleblower named Rebecca Jones and against the Surgeon General and Florida Department of Health. And on like part of her, it was like a 20-page decision. But on part of her decision, she actually argues that the state of Florida didn't misrepresent anything or do anything wrong with COVID based. I'm paraphrasing, but with COVID, and that's the whole predicate of my case. I'm arguing between the procedural irregularities that have occurred and that I need a new judge, and they didn't even argue against that. I feel good about my appeal. I'm running against the clock though, because the case has already been prejudiced. When I did my emergency, so this case, part of why I'm appealing is they dismissed my case while I had a pending emergency motion for a preliminary injunction and evidentiary hearing. I wanted 6 witnesses, including myself to introduce evidence, but also I had Dr. Vila, Dr. Zivitz, Dr. Mahalcha, Nick Holscher, and I am going to subpoena Surgeon General Latipo. And I put that in, that's in my brief. And I want him under oath, not for executive privilege information. I want him to clarify his public statements. He said these are a poison, the antichrist of drugs, and so on. And so I want him under oath. And the challenge is now how long it will take for me to win this appeal, because we're getting a new governor in January. We got an election in November. And so we're going to end up having a new Surgeon General, which, yeah, I could get the former Surgeon General to testify, but I want him there while they're in office, because it pierces the separation of powers too. Because the governor's saying one thing, but the other part of the executive branch that answers to him is saying something entirely different.
So what's I'll wrap it up with this, Joe. Yeah. What's next for you? Like, what is the next step here?
Well, I did a motion for oral argument, which I want because that's live streamed. Plus, I could pack the courtroom. They in the appellate court, like, they live stream that here in Florida. So I did a motion for that. The governor and attorney generals opposed it. I'll find out in a few weeks whether we get the oral argument or not. that has no bearing on the case because last time they didn't give me oral argument and I won. But so that's I'm waiting to hear on that. And then the timeline that I'm looking at, maybe I'll get an answer by September if I'm lucky on the case.
Great. Well, Joe, please keep us in the loop on this. We want to highlight these cases because I think a lot of people are starting, gotten so frustrated about this, and they think that this is just going to be swept under the rug and people won't be indicted, people won't be criminally held responsible for this. And these things are still being advertised on television. I mean, just watch a freaking NFL game and you've got John Legend sitting there at the piano with his flu shot and his COVID shot, and Travis Kelce telling people to go out and get these things. And your argument before the court is this is a bioweapon. How in the world are we even allowing this to be injected into the American populace right now? It's disgusting.
It's utterly evil. It's sadistic, and they're getting pleasure out of the pain that they're causing you and your families. This must be stopped. You are not America first if you look the other way, while American citizens are being targeted with biological and technological weapons of mass destruction. It's that simple.
I agree with you. Joe, I just couldn't help but thinking about what's happening with 6G technology coming next. You talk about shedding of mRNA and you're being infected and you think it led to your congenital heart failure and so many other people, just environmental concerns. I didn't get the jab, but then someone's intimate with someone who got it and they're now infected and shortening lifespans, et cetera. And think about this environmental technology with like 6G that's going up everywhere. President Trump even openly talking about how it can penetrate through our bodies. And now we have the research on it. We know that it's coming and how detrimental it's going to be. And will these people be protected as well? With these companies that are rolling out this type of technology, I'm wondering if we're going to start to see cases like yours as it relates to this type of Wi-Fi technology and cellular technology.
So here's what's happening, Clayton. People are getting lulled to sleep. The mass media hypnosis is working. Like one of the reasons why I went after this fact this was a weapon was because I knew debating whether you can mandate a biological weapon or not, there's an embedded Ericksonian hypnotic command there that it's okay to target us with weapons. So I was like, we need to expose the weapon side of it. But it's like people are being lulled to sleep here and trying to go back to like normal. No, they're not going to stop unless we stop them. Because after 6G, they're going to come out with something else. They're not going to stop unless we stop them. We have to stop them. This is a threat to our species. When the Florida Department of Health says it's a potential threat to the human genome, and a study that I filed, the Bartman study, showed the transmission of the spike and everything to the from the pregnant women to the in the placentas and everything, even among women that got the injection before they were pregnant. So think about that. So there's a potential multi-generational effect. This is literally a potential threat to our species as we know it. And so they want us to be sick. And they want us to be weak. They want us to be docile. They want to control us. They want to limit us. They want to reduce us. And I'm just telling you that you need to wake up and fight back. And I think we need more cases. We need cases. We need to be like the Black rights movement was in the 50s and the 60s. We need to be filing cases left and right and just keep going until we win.
And until one of them breaks through. Because all it takes is one, really. Joe, great to see you. Thank you for your fight on this, and keep us in the loop. We will follow this story very closely. Really appreciate it, Joe. Thanks for your bravery.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time.